So in today's video, we are going to install a new plank floor system, and I got a trick for you. This is not MDF, this is not a laminate, this is vinyl. Yes, this is Torley's vinyl floor. It comes with a brilliant texture, cork underlay, super quiet. So if you're looking for that kind of install, stay tuned. There's been a lot of changes in the flooring industry over the last 20 years. Let's face it, the old standard of carpet everywhere and maybe hardwood, tile in the bathroom, it's gone. There are new products coming out, it seems like every 6 months to a year. And again, we have another one here. This is a vinyl plank. Now, a lot of you may have seen vinyl plank available at the local building store or over at like your local Costco. This is not your vinyl plank you're gonna find there. This is the Torley's Everwood Premier. It's a brilliant series. The stuff runs about $5 to $6 a square foot. So beware, if you're looking for a floor that's gonna last a long time, this is a good choice for you. If you're looking for a quick fix, this is probably out of your price range. Now, when you're gonna install a floor like this, you wanna keep two things in mind: preparation and then preparation. Okay, it all comes down to how clean your floor is. You can never remove the dirt under a floating floor once you've gotten started. So you always wanna vacuum, do all your sanding on any patches that you're working in the room, get yourself swept and vacuumed, and double check your floor for squeaks and screws. Keep your drill handy as you're going. If you hear a squeak on the floor, stop what you're doing and take some time, throw some extra screws in, because you don't want to have a squeak on your floor when you're done. That will be almost impossible to fix. Now, I have seen a lot of installation videos related to this type of product or different plank floorings, and they all kind of follow the same theme, right? If you've seen them, they have their little clip system, they have little wedges you put around the perimeter of the room. You try your best to keep things square with that, and to be honest with you, I've tried installing that years ago, and it drove me nuts. So what I did is I developed a better system, and I'm gonna share it with you. First, you gotta pick which wall you want. In most cases, you're gonna run this parallel with the longest wall in the room. In this particular place, it's open concept main floor, so we had two different options we could run with. So the client, we discussed it, they like this direction, so we'll do what the client says. Next, get out your trusty laser, and at both ends of the room, you want to measure off the wall at some point or another, something healthy like 3 inches. All right, we'll do that over here, 3 inches. And here's why. Instead of using wedges, I'm gonna put this level, laser level, on my mark at both ends of the room. If you're working alone, just set something up at the other end where the mark is, so it'll help you to identify when you're on that spot. There we go, bam. Now what I wanna do, just check. Measure along the wall, everywhere you go. And I'm noticing that most of my measurement is pretty consistent. Gets a little tighter in here, plus or minus a quarter. Beautiful. So now I know the wall is relatively straight. There's a bit of a bow here. So when I'm putting the first few boards down, I want to make sure that I'm not sliding underneath the baseboard, but just touching the baseboard here. It'll open up a bit of gap at both ends, and then I'm going to be fine because I'm going to use a quarter round to cover it when I'm done. So if you're like me, you like to do things fast, you don't want to waste your time. What I do is I just start, hit the baseboard, I drop it, there's my first board, done. When I get to my heat register vents, now of course they have the EverClick system with these floors, so it is brilliant. No need to be hammering everything around. Once you fit it together, it's just done. I just mark right on the floor when I'm going, mark my heat register vents. I'd rather drill a hole when I'm done and then come back and use my jigsaw to cut it out, because that helps keep the integrity of all of this together. Because when you're first starting, we all know, I mean, it's hard enough to keep this stuff straight as it is, right? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my handy dandy tool out. I'm gonna cut a few more boards because I like to build 3 or 4 rows at a time. It helps keep everything straight and square, and you're not always running back and forth and fussing around and closing gaps and making adjustments. All right, so here we go. We're ready to cut our boards. Generally, you always want to cut from the left side because that's going to go under the trim. So I want to have a board that is about 3/4 and then a half, and then maybe something that's like around 2/3. All right, that's a good way to start. Keeps the joints away from each other, nice distance. Now there's different ways that you can cut this stuff. You read the instructions online. It says use a knife. Let's try that. And you just score it. God, that's not easy. Hit it again. That just seems dangerous. You can use a chop saw, or you can do what I did. Grab my laminate floor cutter and see if that works. Yep. I don't know why the online instructions don't include laminate floor cutters, but that worked brilliant. We're gonna go with that system from now on. So what we're doing here is this just a unit click system, okay? We're just gonna put this stuff together. Really quite simple. The idea is just to get the first couple of rows in. Okay. Now you can see, because this is tongue and groove on both sides, you can't just shove it in with your hands. So there's different techniques. There's this technique where you can do an entire row of the room like this, and then you can lay it in together, and you can lay that down. And that works if you're working in a room that's going to be 20 feet long like I am. That system unfortunately isn't going to work for you. Trying to maneuver all those boards in at the same time is going to take 3 or 4 people. So if you're working alone, unfortunately the only thing you have left is a tapping block. For me, the best way to make a tapping block is just take a scrap piece of the flooring and cut it down to size. Okay. Now I got both edges that I can work with, all right? So here's the other way to install your board with both joints. Do the short side first, and here's why. This vinyl and cork has a tongue and groove. If you can look at that, that's a really long piece of flooring. If I put that one in and then start tapping from the other side, it takes a lot of force to force that, because there's a lot of resistance because of the kind of texture we're dealing with. Now this is gonna operate a lot like my laminate floor video. Little love tap, just to seal the joint. It locks nice and tight. Okay, you don't have to beat the living daylights out of this. Just a little tap, and then all of these joints are locked. Now you'll see the floor moving all over the place when we're doing this. And now, this is where the trick comes in so that you don't have this problem. So generally when you're doing a plank flooring, the problem you run into is everything's moving around as you're using the click system, because you got to use a certain amount of force to make it work. So these floating floors tend to slide all over the room. To keep that from happening, with vinyl, you can actually screw it down. I would recommend every 6 inches, right near the edge where your quarter round is going to cover it. Make sure you've lined it up really good. You don't want to overcommit with this program and then be moving around later. Just grab a few screws for every plank. When you're all done, you can pull the screws out later so that you don't have any bumps where you're putting your quarter round down. I'm just going to put in our little tapping block that we made. Look at that. That's closing up really nice as the sweat drips off my forehead. Beautiful. All right, so that covers most of the basics of how to install this floor. Of course, you know that when you get to the transitions of the doors, make sure you can slide this underneath your casing or install your casing after your flooring. That's always my preference. And one more thing about this flooring. This particular product, this company's developed a tool for maintenance over time. If you have a damaged piece of flooring like this, and you want to remove it, they have a special stretcher. It's kind of like a rib spreader. And you can put it down on the floor and you can pull the floor apart, and then you can lift the board out and then reinstall a new one. This is why the manufacturer suggests that you have room around the outside of the floor, okay? So that not for expansion contraction purposes, but for maintenance purposes, okay? So when you're done doing your floor like this, make sure you pull out your screws, because one day down the road, you might need to make the call, and then I can swing by with my rib spreader and take care of that damage. As a quick note, it doesn't come in every box, but there is instructions and all of the recommendations here. One of the recommendations is to put down a 6mm poly, not as a moisture barrier, but more to help make it easier in case you ever have to do maintenance so that the floor will slide. We have installed 1/4-inch luan, which is a real smooth surface, and we aren't gonna see the need for the plastic here. So, you know, do that if you feel necessary. One other question you might have is, because it's cork, can I put this directly on my concrete floor in the basement? And the answer is yes. You do not need any plastic when you're putting cork, okay? So just make sure it's not a fresh pour, and make sure that it's a solid surface. In one of the earlier videos, we actually did some floor leveling around where we had cut the concrete open. And so that was necessary because you want to have a nice flat surface for this to go on. You don't want this going up and down, because then it makes it really difficult for the locking system to engage. There you go, folks. This is how you install a vinyl floor. Lay it down, click, tap, repeat. Hundreds and hundreds of times. And by all means, if you need one of these cutters, go to the local building store. They will rent it for you. It's a big investment, but if you're just doing 1 or 2 floors in your house, then just go rent the tool. 30 or 40 bucks. You can do most of the house in one day. Is definitely worth the investment. It keeps the dust down. It keeps you running back and forth to the saw. And it'll keep you from slicing your hand open using that knife, because that was ridiculous. Well, thanks again for watching us. If you like the channel, subscribe if you have not subscribed yet. And if you want to ask some questions about this product or other installations, by all means, check the comment section below and leave me a message, because we respond to every one of your messages. It's one of our things we love to do. And we'll see you again next time.